This is my video for Project 4, Messages and Meaning. This is kind of now coming towards the end of the assignment, so I'm now collating samples, ideas, and returning back to the idea of planning, and I'm just kind of writing various things down that come to mind, and I've extracted some works to start me off with this planning. I've returned back to local history. I'm not too sure as of yet whether this will be relevant, but it's just that the mark making and so forth started to stimulate some of this work. But the main sort of focus, I did actually go back to the sampling of school reports. Now, I've completely moved away from the idea of maps and the way that the envelopes sort of developed in their own right and own accord, but I've kind of zoomed in on the words that have become apparent in the school reports. So I'd photocopied and enlarged some of these reports and started to pick out some of the wordings and so forth. And reflected on the history of my academic schooling. Quite an emotional thing, and it's also really identified this thing of my diagnosis with dyslexia. So this is the direction that I'm actually taking meanings and words into. So I followed the same processes, and in the sketchbook I wanted to demonstrate that I've actually looked at the scale and turning school reports into pieces of art. It was quite important for me to do this, because then an extension of this was moving on to my own personal archive of photographs and from the earlier drawings that I'd done. Sort of manipulating the face into masks, and how dyslexia can actually make a child and an adult feel. So these then developed again into masks and faces and art, with the planning and outlines and using words to actually express how one can feel. So moving on, I'd already knew early on that I wanted to use all of these sampled pieces of work from early on in the assignment. They're pretty colourful, they're pretty energetic, they've got lots of mark making, and in total they became my fabrics for this assignment. So then what I did for the next stage and phases of the fabric was to make the translation of the fabric into paper masks. So the sketchbook actually shows the journey of drawings using the paper. I'd started to create the idea from the masks, a textile warrior. Now this warrior is going to be creative, he's going to be the dyslexic warrior, and he's going to break and fight the fears of dyslexia. Now we can see a manipulation of the drawings of the faces and so forth translated onto the paper head masks. I made a chest body so that I will demonstrate I shall be wearing this and a shield. So these photographs in all show the journey of the mask. The masks were then displayed onto a dressmaker's dummy to show that the masks could also become pieces of art in a museum. And then I returned to bringing in all the other colour palettes and all the other suggestions, and really the paper fabrics just basically determined the strength of what the masks would do, and fortunately each and every one of them is very different. They look quite nice isolated on these photographs, because I can demonstrate them as an artefact in a museum. And as we can see, the shape of the warrior comes together, and the shape of the masks as artifacts. Now, I think this assignment, like all my assignments, I think I'm pretty competent with the photographic evidence and the video footage, and I think it's what makes my work quite exciting. Now here I've returned back to the woods where I demonstrated the masks, mounted them up upon trees. So we are taking the masks outdoors, an idea of yarn bombing, which came from Ideas and Processes. And then here I've actually taken video and photographic footage of me, an actual person, who is the sufferer of dyslexia, wearing his mask with the idea of fears hiding behind the mask, or maybe being a little bit more extrovert. As we can see, I'm fully dressed and fully clad as my textile warrior, and there is video footage of him on my blog. And then I thought it'd be quite nice to actually display the armour as a found artefact in the woods. Now, a little side project, a development of words and meanings. I wanted to devise these samples here from early on. Just reminded me, for some reason, it just popped out as an idea. They felt like little kites. They were actually the tea bags with words attached from the cemeteries of memories and loss and sacred. And I connected this with dyslexia, and I've actually translated some of the paper fabrics into kites. And again, these kites are displayed as pieces of art in the woods and also as artifacts. And the idea behind the kite was actually allowing the fears and the connotations of how dyslexia makes you feel to actually would have been quite nice, but the paper is way too heavy to have flown the kites on Kimber Edge, just letting go of your fears and allowing your creativity to fly. So I think that this would be a fantastic idea for a project to move it forward, to maybe get these school reports with all these negative connotations of feeling weak, stupid, and the fear of having difficulties with language. Maybe get them printed onto nylon fabric and actually fly the kites, which I think would be quite an emotional and personal achievement. And that this is what I feel that has actually come from this assignment.